Hello, Mordarim here. In today's video I want to show you my take on the Frozen Orb Sorcerer for Season 4. This spell was changed to always shoot towards where the mouse is pointing instead of flying a fixed distance, which makes the Frozen Orb spell insanely strong for leveling due to its huge AoE and great single target damage. However, there are Manacost related issues which will not go away. So we need some mana regen on our gear as well as resist cost reduction to make it pop. Luckily, it is now certainly possible due to new affixes on your gear. There is also no need for the Fractured Winter Glass for the build to feel powerful, but it will enable you to absolutely dominate the endgame. The main feature of this build is spawning as many Frost Orbs as possible while freezing enemies into oblivion. The amulet got nerfed pretty significantly, which will lower the power of this build quite a bit. All the videos you see on the internet are pre-nerf, so take those with a grain of salt, including this one. It's not going to flood the screen with frozen orbs anymore, same with conjurations. It will still be strong, just not uber insane anymore. Now remember to check out the written guide on Mobalytics. It provides you with a detailed section for each topic explaining how to bolster your defenses, how to scale your damage and how to transition into different phases. You also have multiple tabs for level brackets, which will come with additional notes and aspects as well as stat recommendations. With that said, the build is extremely easy to play. You just use a Frozen Orb, freeze entire screens and move to the next pack. The build itself focuses on conjurations and the Frozen Orb spell, constantly spawning Hydras, Lightning Spears and Ice Blades to help you out. Season 4 massively buffed pets, so those should be much more powerful, akin to what you saw on the PTR before the game launched, especially with Hydras dominating. Aspects are also different now. They are obtained and stored long term if you salvage the item. Once you find one and salvage it, it will be put into the codex for you to use infinitely. This will make exchanging gear, especially during leveling and slapping on imprints, much more feasible. Overall, this one looks to be an amazing starter. It's completely ranged, offers you pets and is very safe due to the CC we throw around. Now if you like what I do and want to support me, make sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you have not already. I cover all sorts of RPG, speed, strategy, C or RPG on this channel in form of extensive guides. So thank you very much for supporting me and let's dive into the build. So first up, a quick overview of the planner. You have a Skilltree planner as well as an aspect and unique planner for specifically level ranges, so level 1 to 70, leveling 70 to 100 transition and over 100. Now the skill trees for all of them look a little bit different, so the leveling one has some life per second here, and the endgame one doesn't need that, so we are picking up Icy Touch for more damage. In the first section you will see a description of how this build works, then you have a leveling description, defense and resistance tab, scaling your damage, endgame transition and leveling tips. So first we're going to look at the leveling section. Instead of Flame Shield in our skill bar we are going to use a Frostbolt spell because we can sometimes go Ohm, so we cannot cast a Frost Orb and we still want to be able to damage foes, so Frostbolt is the obvious choice here. Next we're going to look at Frozen Orb. Frozen Orb has a 40 mana cost, that is quite a lot, so we need something to offset that. We're going to solve this problem with gear stats. So we have mana per second on the helmet, on the chest and on our boots. So the first two stats you see on the gear here, movement speed and mana cost, are the two you want to find. Mana cost per second combined with resist cost reduction on our rings will provide us with enough sustain to basically never worry about the Frozen Orb mana cost. And while we are looking for the right equipment, we are going to always have our aspect of Frozen Orb on our amulet for the most amount of damage. It's going to buff our Frozen Orb considerably. We then have additionally the Prodigy's aspect to sustain our mana cost with mana on cooldown. So whenever we use our Ice Armor, our Ice Blades, our Lightning Spear or our Teleport, we're going to get a little bit of mana back. Next, we're going to improve our damage with the Conceited aspect, the Storm Spell aspect, the Accelerating aspect and the Shredding Blades aspect. So the Shredding Blades aspect will increase your vulnerable damage by 50% at the very least. Then you have, whenever you have a barrier, the Conceited aspect as well as the Storm Spell aspect, which is another more multiplier. And the Accelerating aspect will provide you with more attack speed. So this attack speed can go over the cap of 100%, but for now it's not relevant. Speaking of attack speed, you want to find attack speed and intelligence. On your offhand, you want to find critical strike chance and intelligence. Attack speed can also be very useful, but critical strike chance will result in more damage. Movement speed, of course, is the highest priority stat during leveling on your amulet as well as on your boots. Critical strike chance and resist cost reduction on your rings. And for your gloves, attack speed, critical strike chance and ranks to Frozen Orb are all very, very good. Ranks to Frozen Orb should be prioritized. Then you can grab attack speed or critical strike chance. Once you get to World Tier 3 and 4, you can think about transitioning to the endgame section. With the endgame build, you're going to drop a few points in Fire Research, Endless Prayer and Warmth and get Icy Touch. Mainly, finish up the Frigid Breeze so you have enough mana regeneration, mana recovery. And during this part, you can also find things like Tile Rush's Iridescent Loop, as well as Tybalt's Will from Duriel, and the Fractured Winterglass, which can drop from Lord Seer. So Lord Seer is the vampire boss, so you want to beat this one as much as possible to get the Fractured Winterglass. Otherwise, the aspects stay basically the same, except that we are going to move the Frozen Orbit aspect to our gloves from our amulet. And of course, we slot in the Flame Shield. At this point, you are also going to see a significant benefit from your enchantments. So we have Frozen Orb, so we have a 30% chance on every cast of our Frozen Orb, any spell at that, to shoot a Frozen Orb at a nearby enemy. And we have Firebolt. Firebolt is used to trigger basically all the fire effects for burning. During leveling, it's Warmth and Fire Research for mana regeneration, and now it's for Devouring Blaze. So we have more damage versus crowd controlled targets as well as critical strike damage. For our defenses, cold resistance should be completely covered through our Paragon Board. A lightning resistance will need a Topaz gem. Then we have fire, shadow and poison resistance. Now, those are a little bit tricky because we can only slot in 2. So we need to find a slot for the shadow resistance or poison resistance. For our boots, we have shadow resistance here. So this should cover everything we need. For our chest armor, you will see we have armor and total armor. This should technically be enough to cover all your needs for armor. And you should be able to reach the 9,230 cap, which you can see here. This will provide you with 85% damage reduction versus physical damage from monsters level 100 and higher. You need to reach this cap, otherwise you're going to get blasted in the end game. Lastly, health recovery is a problem, but we mostly use our barriers to prevent the damage, and we have health pots to recover health. Lastly, how do we scale our damage? We have our intelligence, we have cold damage with Frigid Fate, which will provide you with a more multiplier. We have a ton of more multipliers in the Paragon Board, and our increases to damage can be met with damage to close, crit damage, non-physical damage, vulnerable damage, and that's about it. You want to have as much attack speed and crit chance as possible, but most of it comes through our gear. Now let's have a look at the skill tree. You have a leveling path available to you, so you can trigger this one and you can see exactly at what skill point you want to pick what node. This can also be very conveniently viewed in the Mobalytics app, so if you want to install it, you can do this. You can also find timers for bosses there and an overlay map if you want to have a permanent map on your screen. Now at the start, you can put 2 points into Frostbolt and later on spec out of 1 point, and Firebolt is going to be your second one. Why? Because we need 1 point in Firebolt to reach the enchantment, otherwise we cannot use it. The enchantment will provide us with a burn source on our frost spells, which we now use to trigger Devouring Blaze and Warmth during leveling. Next, we're going to look at the path. We pick up Frozen Orb, then Enhanced Frozen Orb and Greater Frozen Orb. So Greater Frozen Orb has now a 40% chance on an explosion to make enemies vulnerable. Frozen enemies are always made vulnerable. This is based on our chill chance. We have a ton of chill chance, so enemies will be frozen quite often. The explosion also deals more damage. And then we max out our Frozen Orb. We pick up Teleport with Enhanced Teleport for the movement speed buff. Then we move down to the Ice Blade spell and Lightning Spear spell, both of which will be amazing during the leveling phase. They deal a ton of damage. Alternatively, you can also pick up Hydra, 1 point here, and slot it in instead of, for example, your Flame Shield if you don't need that. This will provide you with the best leveling experience. Conjurations deal a ton of damage during the leveling process, so having those available to you now is going to be a huge benefit. Then we pick up Enhanced Ice Blades as well as Summoned Ice Blades, so we spread our cooldown reduction a little bit. Get Enhanced Lightning Spear as well as Invoked Lightning Spear for another source of stun. And we pick up Conjuration Mastery. Conjuration Mastery got a huge buff, so we now have 3% additional movement speed and 6% mana regen per active conjuration, additional to the 3% more damage. This stacks infinitely. So if you have 10 conjurations, you deal 30% more damage, you have 30% more movement speed, and 60% more mana regen. Then we move back, pick up Shimmering Teleport for 30% damage reduction, grab Ice Armor, Enhanced Ice Armor, and Shimmering Ice Armor. This will reduce the cooldown whenever we spend 50 mana. So we have more uptime on our Ice Armor, which provides us with more damage because we have a conceited aspect as well as Storm Spell aspect, which are going to only provide us with a more damage multiplier if we have a barrier. Then we move down, pick up Permafrost, Hoarfrost for more damage, and 1 point in Frigid Breeze. You can expand this one to 2 during leveling. During the endgame, you want to have 3 to sustain your mana, because Frozen Orb has actually quite a high amount of lucky hit chance because we are hitting multiple enemies over and over again with the explosion, which also has a lucky hit chance. So even if there is only 4% here, it's actually higher. It's around 20%. So that's really, really nice to have. Then we pick Avalanche, and then you are going to just spread out your points however you like. You can max out Icy Touch, you can get Devouring Blaze, you can get your Mana Shield for more DR, 1 point in Elemental Attunement, Glass Cannon for more damage, Elemental Dominance for more damage, 1 additional point for Teleport so the cooldown gets lower, and that's about it. Lastly, a quick look at the Uber section. We have Harlequin's Crest for the helmet slot and Ring of Starless Skies for the ring slot. This will provide you with a ton of additional mana. This will provide you with a ton of additional damage, a ton of additional survivability and resource cost reduction. Preferably you want to grab the Harlequin Crest first and then the Ring of Starless Skies. But if you drop the Ring of Starless Skies first, go for it. Now, a quick reminder, you can grab the Esu Boots. Those will provide you with crit strike chance. However, we need the shadow resistance, we need movement speed, because we cannot grab it on our amulet. So Esu is only going to give us like 5% crit strike chance. That's really low. That's not worth it. So concussive strikes will provide you with a 20% more multiplier versus dazed enemies, more movement speed, longer freeze duration, maximum life, and shadow resistance. So the benefits are too great to give up. And lastly, a quick look at the Paragon Board. It looks like a snake because it is one. We're going to start the board with the Enchanter Glyph. This gives us non-physical damage, which is basically frost damage for the Frigid Fate node, which we grab next. This will provide us with a more multiplier. The next glyph is the Control Glyph with more damage versus stunned or frozen enemies, and we get increased damage because it's crowd-controlled enemies. Next, we move to the Icefall board. We pick up Reinforced. So whenever we have a barrier active, we get a 15% damage reduction, which is really powerful. We pick up Icefall for more damage. Then we move to the next board, which is Elemental Summoner. We pick up Elemental Summoner first for more damage for our conjurations. They have less cooldown, they deal more damage, and we get access to Conjurer Glyph, which provides us with more damage for our conjuration skills and conjuration skill duration increased. Since we get more damage per active conjuration, this one is a more multiplier for damage over time. Then we go to the Enchantment Master. We pick up a quick glyph with the Flame Feeder. We get 10% more damage with Flame Feeder and a little bit of increased damage. Afterwards, we're going to reach the Keyless Conduit glyph board, which we max out with the Destruction glyph, providing us with more damage and increases to critical damage. And lastly, the Searing Heat board with the Elementalist glyph, providing us with 15% more damage. And lastly, the stats for the endgame. So once you reach the pit, you can masterwork your stuff. You want to masterwork mana per second on your helmet, cooldown reduction. You want to have the tempered crowd control duration and chill slow potency, so you freeze enemies faster and they are frozen for longer. For your chest, intelligence and maximum life. Intelligence is a more multiplier. Maximum life is really important for your barrier generation. Total armor is a defensive one, and freeze duration is also really nice to have on this build. For your gloves, it's really important that you masterwork Frozen Orb. Only Frozen Orb. That's 8 ranks to Frozen Orb, which is absolutely amazing. Then you have cold damage, because we need to scale our Frigid Fate node, and because this also scales our conjurations. If we only pick up close damage, we are not going to get a more multiplier on this one, so this one is wasted. Then we have our boots, which I already talked about. Movement speed needs to be your priority stat here, so you can get as close as possible to 199 or 200, whatever, movement speed. Really important to get the shadow resistance here, or poison resistance, or fire resistance. On the weapon, you want to have a wand for the lucky hit chance, with intelligence, attack speed, and vulnerable damage, then get the chance for Frozen Orb projectiles to cast twice, and then afterwards the cold damage. You really want a double chance cast. On your offhand, intelligence, crit strike chance, and attack speed. The crit strike chance on this one can get to around 20% with a greater effect, so that's also really nice to have. For the offhand, the same thing applies. Chance for Frozen Orb to cast twice. Really important to get. And the last one, the ring, resource cost reduction, maximum life, and crit strike chance. You really want to get the maximum life here because it scales your defenses with barrier. Resource generation is really nice to have, and we have cold damage to scale our damage even further. Now this sums up the video. If you liked what you saw, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you have not already. You can also support me some more by joining the channel membership, which will allow me to keep making videos. So thank you very much for watching, and see you next time. Bye!